Hello, this is the first episode of the portfolio series with different offices from the globe. And today we have Alba Kuçi from STUDIOARCH4, and she's here with us to help us know more about their hiring process and how they evaluate the portfolios when they are hiring new applicants. Thanks, Alba, for your time and for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, let's know you more.
I'm Alba. I work and live in Tirana as an architect. I finished university as an urban planner and architect, so I can work in both fields. Momentarily in my studio, I hold the position of a senior architect. Have been working with STUDIOARCH4 since 5 years now. We have a lot of projects that we have worked on together and hoping many more to come. so I have also been involved lately, most recently, in the process of selecting and hiring new applicants for the studio. So I'm glad to give my insight on anything that is needed for young architects to know what they need to apply for new jobs, because I know it can be um, a pretty tough process. We've all been through it as young architects, so I'm
Thank
glad
you.
to be here.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. So let's jump to the first question. How crucial is a portfolio when an applicant applies for a position in the office? And what impact does a well crafted portfolio have on the hiring decision?
Um, a well-crafted portfolio is, of course, a big plus in our opinion. But what's most important to us is also the one-on-one interviews that we have. So I would say it's impactful, but it's not decisive. We've had many cases where the portfolio and work experience have been great, but the one-on-one conversation has not given us what we expected, so to say, and that has been ultimately the decisive factor in whether we're hiring that applicant or not. So the portfolio, I would say, is really the first impression and first insight that you get into the person you're hiring. And of course, it has its importance, but it's not a decisive factor.
I see. So, how do you typically review portfolios during the hiring process, and what criteria do you consider when evaluating the candidates?
This is a question that also has to do with what kind of experience you're looking for. So, if you're looking for junior architects or for senior architects, of course, you look for different kind of things in both situations. I'm going to talk about the case where you're looking for junior architects, so architects with no experience, and what we look for in them. Of course, the first part is the graphic presentation of the portfolio, as we are in a field that requires good presentation skills, and that is beginning with your portfolio. So if you have that in check, we know that you can manage to present projects in the future as well as you did in your portfolio. So the graphic part and formatting of the pages is definitely important, but that's just a percentage of the what we look for. As I said, that's the first impact that you get. So a good graphic design is very helpful in capturing the attention of whoever is looking at your portfolio, um, but also, ensuring that you will have those good presentation skills also in the future if hired. Um, yeah, that's about it.
Great. And in your opinion, what make you think that this portfolio is special and it stands out than the others? Maybe when you open a position, a lot of people
Mhm.
apply to the position, right? So what makes it stand out than the others?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the first is the presentation of your work. The second would be the ability to deliver the essence of a project without taking too much space. So without elongating your going 8 pages on a project. That's not necessary. So every type of information can be summed up and concluded, and the essence can be delivered, I would say, in no more than 4 pages for a project, depending also on its size, because that also matters if you're in an urban scale or an architecture scale. It differentiates, of course. But it's important to have the essence of a project and not be too involved in explaining all the technicalities and everything. I would also say that accompanying each project with a short text is also important. And also your role in that project. So this goes more for if you've had experience before and you state that your role was 2D drafting, 3D drafting, or whatever your role may have been. But if you were in school, you may have had group projects in which you also had a certain role. And it's important for us to know what your role was during that whole during that whole phase. Was it more involved in the conceptual phase? Was it more involved in the 3D renderings? So it's important to know because that also shows the skill set at the end of the day. Because you may take a group project and present it as your own, and meanwhile you may not have had that much of a role in it. So that needs to be a little bit more transparent to for the applicant.
Great. And what do you think are the common mistakes that you see in the architectural portfolios, and how can the young architects avoid them?
Some of the mistakes. So we see mistakes, not really mistakes, but just objectively speaking, is the too much technical information. So we'd sometimes see projects that have been, for example, have been applied for in the municipality, and the pages of the portfolio are just the pages that have been formatted for municipality purposes, which is not at all how you should go about in your portfolio. It should have the originality of your work, but without the standard formatting of another institution, so to say. So, yeah, too much technical information is a part that may disadvantage your portfolio. I'm not saying not to include details. Of course, detailing is also very important, but especially in young architects, what we look for most is the conceptual phase, the sketches, so the originality that you bring into your work, because everything else can be learned with the years of experience. So even if you're not that included in the detailing, you will be. That is unavoidable. So what we care for most is the conceptual and the originality that you bring, the creativity that you bring into your work. And
Great, great.
I would also say, if you're presenting a project, be sure to include not only the final images that you have produced for that project. So not to get too hung up on the renderings and such, because sometimes we do like to do that. But we have to understand that renderings are a way of selling to a client. But drawings and sketches and even 3D axonometric presentations are the way to sell to a job offer, so to your employer.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true. So what about the copy? Let's me call it copy paste personalized, not personalized letters, cover letters. So when for example, a student like to apply for offices, they just write a generic cover letter and they send it to every office. What do you think about it? Do you find out that it's a copy paste letter?
So in our experience, we don't usually work with cover letters. We hold that, so we keep that for the one-on-one interview where we ask things like, how did you first encounter our studio, or what are some projects that you like that we've worked on? And that is a way of us getting to know the person as well, the person who's applying, and why are they applying specifically to our studio. And it's very interesting because you get to know them much more than you would in a cover letter. And that's why we don't require a cover letter during application phases. I'm not sure if we used to in the past, but I believe it is a standard practice in Albania, in Tirana at least, not to include cover letters in your applications.
So
So that
having a
goes back
personal
to the
meeting is
interview
better.
being the more important part.
Having it face to face, I think, would be more effective, right?
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, definitely.
And lastly, what advice would you give to aspiring architects who are working on their portfolio for the first time?
I would say that if you have projects from, say, first year, second year, third year, even, that you're including into your portfolio, don't be afraid to jump into those projects again and work um, graphically or functionality. So you don't think the same way you thought when you were a third year student, when you're at the end of school applying for jobs. So it's different kinds of thinking and different kinds of skill set that you've gained during the years. And you can go back to those projects because that's your portfolio, that's going to be your presentation, and work on them again if needed to strive for the best type of position that you can get, and to be evaluated more with your portfolio. Because we do get sometimes students that have not reworked their projects, so to say, that are just in first year phases and second year phases of, and we know that's not the same as being in fifth year or having finished school and graduated. So if you want to include a project from early years of education, you should dive back into it and apply your experience that you have now. Also include sketches, which is important, but not everybody can include sketches. We're aware of that, but we do love to see original work. And if you're somebody who sketches, make sure to also include that in the portfolio. Also, for us, it's important to have a mention of the programs that you've used to achieve your final product. So if you've used Revit or AutoCAD or 3ds Max, it helps us visualize what proficiency you have in each program and what you would need to work on in case you were hired, because we also do offer assistance in learning each program. And also be mindful of the position you're applying for. So if it's a position that is looking more for visualizers, of course, they're not going to care about technical drawings, or vice versa. So be mindful also of the position.
These are very great tips. Thank you so much for them,
Oh,
and thank
you're
you for your
welcome.
time and sharing your experience and expertise. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching the video. Be sure to follow STUDIOARCH4 on their Instagram. They have really amazing works, and be sure to subscribe to see our next episode. Bye bye.
Thank you, Mohammed, for having me.
Thank you,
It was
Allah.
a pleasure.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.